Okay, so we will continue chapter 7 today. So in last class we looked at step 1, step 2 and step 6. Um, we were basically mapping ER diagram to a relational schema. Today we will go through step 3, 4, 5 and 7. These four steps which are related to relationships, okay, binary and NRE relationships. So if I look at this diagram, then in last class we actually completed mapping regular entity types, weak entity types and multi-valued attributes, and today we will go through the relationships. So as we know, binary relationships can be of three types. It can be one to one, one to many, or many to many, right? So we will go through each of these types, and we will start with many to many. We'll start with step 5. Okay, so let's see. Here we have only one many to many relationship, which is the works on relationship. So employee works on project. So this is a many to many relationship. So we will see how to map many to many relationship. For many to many relationship, we will always create a separate table. So for the works on project relationship, we will create a separate table. So this was our previous diagram from last class, which had four tables: employee, department, project, dependent was for the weak entity type, and department location was for the multi-valued attribute. So now we will create a table for the weak entity, a table for the many to many relationship, um, which was works on, right, employee works on project. So this table is called works on. Okay, so now the rule is that for this many to many relationship, we will add the primary key of the connected entity types as the foreign key in this table. So the connected entity types are employee and project. So the primary key of employee and the primary key of project will be added as foreign keys in the works on table. So if we do that, so the primary key of employee is SSN, right? So for SSN we have the foreign key employee SSN, and the primary key of project is the project's number. So we will add that P number. And uh, after we add the foreign keys, if the relationship has any simple and composite attributes, we will add those in this table as well. If there are multi-valued attributes in the relationship, we will add them as a separate table. So any simple or composite attribute in works on relationship should be added to the works on table. So I will be adding the attribute hours here. So these are our columns. This one is coming from the employee table, and this one is coming from the project table, and I will underline these two as my primary key. So the foreign keys will be underlined here as the primary key. So again, the rule for many to many is that আমরা হচ্ছে many to many জন্য সবসময় আলাদা টেবিল ক্রিয়েট করব, অ্যান্ড ওই টেবিলে এভরি সিঙ্গল এন্টিটি টাইপ যেটা ওই রিলেশনশিপের সাথে কানেক্টেড সেগুলোর প্রাইমারি কি হচ্ছে এখানে আমি ফরেন কি হিসাবে আনবো অ্যান্ড আন্ডারলাইন করব. If there are any other attributes in the relationship, those will be added here as well. Any question about this?
No, ma'am.
ওকে, সো এই মেথডটাকে আমরা বলি ক্রস রেফারেন্সিং মেথড. ক্রস রেফারেন্সিং মিনস আমরা হচ্ছে দুইটা জায়গা থেকে ক্রস রেফারেন্স করতেছি ভ্যালুগুলা. সো দিস মেথড অফ ম্যাপিং মেনি টু মেনি রিলেশনশিপ ইজ নোন অ্যাজ আ ক্রস রেফারেন্সিং মেথড, যেখানে আমরা আলাদা টেবিল বানাই. Okay, so now we will go to the next step. So in this diagram we actually have only one many to many relationship, so এটা আমরা ম্যাপ করে ফেলছি, এখন আমরা অন্য রেশিওতে যাব. So the second thing that we will see after this is the step 4, which is mapping of one to many relationship. 1:n এর যে রিলেশনশিপ থাকে সেটা ম্যাপ করব. So in this diagram we have several one to many relationships. The first one is works for. So এটা আগে ম্যাপ করি. So এটা হচ্ছে employee works for department. So in this case employee has the ratio of participation of n. So employee side থেকে n হচ্ছে participation, আর departmental side থেকে it is 1. So department is the one side and employee is the n side. So in a one to many relationship we can use the previous approach, which is the cross referencing approach, but ওই approachটা inefficient because it will waste more space than necessary. Instead we can use another approach which is more efficient, which is known as the foreign key approach. So in the foreign key approach what we will do is we will take the foreign key from the entity type that has one participation and add it to the entity type as foreign key that has the n participation. মানে হচ্ছে যে সাইডের এন্টিটি টাইপের রিলেশনশিপে ওয়ান রেশিও আছে সেটার প্রাইমারি কিকে আমি যেই সাইডে n আছে সেই টেবিলে অ্যাড করব অ্যাজ ফরেন কি. So here 1 is from the department side, so I will add the primary key of department to employees table which has the n side. Okay, so if I do that, then if I come here, then the department has the department's primary key is department number, and now we will add department's number to the employee table as foreign key. So this is known as the foreign key approach. So এখানে গিয়ে আমরা কি করব, we will add department number here. And since this is a foreign key we will be showing it using the arrow. Okay, in a foreign key approach the foreign key is not underlined, তার মানে আমরা ফরেন কি যেটা ডিএনও সেটাকে আন্ডারলাইন করব না. ওকে, সো আমরা আগে দেখতেছিলাম যে ক্রস রেফারেন্সিং যে অ্যাপ্রোচটা আমরা ফলো করছিলাম ওয়ার্কস অনের জন্য, সেখানে ফরেন কি আন্ডারলাইন হচ্ছিল, বা আমরা যখন উইক এন্টিটি বা মাল্টিভ্যালুডের সময় ফরেন কি আনতেছিলাম তখনও ফরেন কি আন্ডারলাইন হচ্ছিল. বাট ফরেন কি অ্যাপ্রোচে যখন আমরা ওয়ান টু মেনি রিলেশনশিপ ম্যাপ করব তখন ফরেন কি ইজ নট গোয়িং টু বি আন্ডারলাইন্ড. ওকে, সো please note it down because a lot of people make that mistake. So let's map some more one to many relationships so that it's clear. So if we look at this relationship controls department controls project, here also this is a one to many relationship. So here also we will take the the primary key from the one side entity and add it as foreign key in the n side entity. So ekhane one side is the department entity type, I will add the primary key of department as the foreign key in project. Okay, so let's do that. So department's primary key is again the department's number, and okay, so I actually added it before and I forgot to remove it. Anyways, as you can see the department number I added in project for mapping the controls, and here is the link, so the connection arrow. ঠিক আছে, সো আমি এখানে ডিপার্টমেন্ট নাম্বারটা অ্যাড করলাম, অ্যাড করে হচ্ছে এখানে আমার ফরেন কির অ্যারোটা দিয়ে দিতে হবে. এনি কোয়েশ্চেন about the one to many foreign key approach? আচ্ছা, সো এখানে আরও ওয়ান টু মেনি আছে. দিস সুপারভিশন ইজ অলসো ওয়ান টু মেনি, বাট দিস ইজ আ রিকার্সিভ রিলেশনশিপ. ওকে, সো উই উইল again follow the same technique, but it will look slightly different because it's recursive, which means only one entity type is connected here. So what we will do is we will take the primary key of the one side and add it to the n side. Okay, so here the primary key of the one side is the supervisor's primary key, right? So supervisor is again the employee table, so the employee table's primary key is the SSN. So I will add the supervisor's SSN in the supervisee table. Now the supervisee table is also the employee table, so in this case I will add the supervisor's SSN in the supervisees table, both of which is the employee table. Okay, so what I mean by that is that I will so the supervisor's SSN is the primary key of the supervisor, and I will add this to the supervisee table, which is again the employee table. So I'm going to add the supervisor's SSN in this table. So this is the supervisor's SSN, and the arrow will go from here to its own table. Okay, so the value of the supervisor SSN is coming from the SSN column. So let's say I have a lot of employees, employee 1, 2, 3 and so on, and let's say here I have employee 1's information in this row. So employee 1's birthday, their name, their address, all of this information will be here, and then the supervisor of the employee 1, let's say, is employee 2. So in supervisor SSN I will have employee 2's SSN, right? So all this information here is for employee 1, and then employee 1 supervisor's SSN is also stored here, and this supervisor's SSN is also coming from this same column. So employee 2's SSN is also saved in this column. So that's what it means, or data wise that's how it will appear. Okay, so আমরা if we have a recursive relationship, তাহলে আমাদেরকে দেখতে হবে রেশিওটা কি, অ্যান্ড ওই মেথডটাই ফলো করতে হবে যেটা ওই রেশিওর জন্য অ্যাপ্রোপ্রিয়েট. So in this case I am using the foreign key approach, and I'm adding the primary key of the supervisor as the foreign key for the supervisee. In this case both the primary key and foreign key are taken and added in the same table. Any question? আচ্ছা, আরেকটা ফাইনাল 1 to n রিলেশনশিপ আছে, which is the dependence of. But as you can see, dependence of is an identifying relationship, and if you remember from last class আমরা যখন weak entity map করতেছিলাম তখন কিন্তু আমরা we already addressed the identifying relationship by adding the primary key of the employee to dependent, right? So we actually mapped the identifying relationship when we were mapping the weak entity type. So if the identifying relationship has a one-to-one or a one-to-many relationship, we do not have to map it again. It has already been mapped. এটা যদি মেনি টু মেনি রিলেশনশিপ হতো আইডেন্টিফাইংটা, অথবা যদি n to 1 হইতো, which means n যদি এমপ্লয়ি সাইডে হইতো আর one side dependent থাকতো, তাহলে we would have mapped it again, because in that case some new information or new data might be generated. So one to one বা one to many থাকলে, where many is the weak side, আমাদেরকে আবার করতে হবে না, because আমরা already এটা ম্যাপ করে ফেলছি. Okay, so any questions regarding this? Any questions? Okay, so let's move forward. আমাদের actually we don't have any more one to many relationships left. So in a one to many relationship, if there was any relationship of the attribute যদি কোনো রিলেশনশিপ থাকতো, তাহলে সেটাও আমরা n সাইডে অ্যাড করতাম, which means যেই সাইডে আমরা ফরেন কি অ্যাড করছি সেই সাইডেই আমরা ওই রিলেশনশিপের অ্যাট্রিবিউটগুলোকেও অ্যাড করতাম. So let's say if works for had any attributes, then I would add those attributes in employee as well, because employee is the n side. আচ্ছা, সো ফাইনালি আমরা স্টেপ 3-তে যাচ্ছি, which is the binary one to one relationship. So আমরা many to many সময় দেখলাম we actually used the cross referencing approach where we created a separate table. For one to many we used the foreign key approach where we add the primary key of one table as a foreign key in the other table, and for one to one we can actually use any one of these two approaches. আমরা foreign key ও use করতে পারবো, many to cross referencing ও use করতে পারবো. So cross referencing is simple. We will just create, so here we have the one-to-one relationship for managers, employee managers department. So for if we are using the cross-referencing approach, we will just create a separate table for managers and add the primary keys of employee and department in managers, and also add the start date from the managers relationship. So this is simple, I'm not showing this. Instead I am going to show how we will do this using the foreign key approach. Okay, so you can use any one of these approaches, it's up to you. So foreign key approach, if I am using the foreign key approach, then before when we were using the foreign key approach তখন আমরা যেই সাইডে n আছে সেই সাইডে আমরা foreign keyটা অ্যাড করতেছিলাম, বাট এখানে both sides have one, so কোন সাইডে should we add the foreign key, right? So we should add the foreign key in any of these sides. So আমরা যে কোনো একটা সাইডে if we add the foreign key it will be correct. However, if we look at this diagram তাহলে we will see যে on the employee side there is a single line from managers to employees. Single line means there is a optional participation, and from department to managers there is a double line. This shows mandatory participation, which means every single department has a manager while all employees will not be managing, right? So if I add the foreign key in any of the side, employee or department, both will be correct. But if I add it on the side with the double line, যে সাইডে ডাবল লাইন আছে সেই সাইডে অ্যাড করা মানে হচ্ছে আমার আরও বেশি এফিশিয়েন্ট হবে, বিকজ আমার স্পেস সেভ হবে. whereas if I add it on the side which has a single line তাহলে আমার অনেক নাল ভ্যালুস জেনারেট হবে অ্যান্ড আমার স্পেস নষ্ট হবে. সো adding it on the department side would be more efficient, but I can add it in either side, both will be correct. Okay, so আমি যে কোনো একটা সাইডে অ্যাড করলে কারেক্ট হবে, বাট ডিপার্টমেন্ট সাইডে এখানে অ্যাড করলে এটা মোর এফিশিয়েন্ট হবে. সো আমি ডিপার্টমেন্ট সাইডে অ্যাড করব. সো লেটস ডু দ্যাট. সো আমি কী করব, যে ম্যানেজারের এসএসএনটা আছে সেটা আমি ডিপার্টমেন্টে অ্যাড করব. সো ডিপার্টমেন্ট টেবলটাকে আমি একটু সাইজ বড় করে দিই, and then আমি ম্যানেজারের এসএসএনটা আমি আনতেছি, and এই রিলেশনশিপে we have a start date attribute, so I am taking that start date. So because of less space I just wrote s date, which is basically the start date. So here we have this, and manager is coming from the employee table, so I am going to add the arrow. So this is how I'm using foreign key approach to map the one-to-one relationship. You can also use the cross referencing approach, but যে কোনো একটা approach use করতে হবে, not both. Okay, any questions regarding this? Okay, so if no questions, let's go to the step 7. So we actually covered from step 1 to 6 in the two classes. So now we will look at step 7. Step 7 is mapping of NRE relationship. So if you remember, NRE means any relationship that has more than 2 entity types connected to it. If 3 entity types are connected to it, it's ternary, or if more than 3 is connected, it's NRE. So this step is applicable for any relationship that has more than 2 entity types connected to it. So if we in this diagram there is actually no NRE relationship, so we have to come up with a new example. So we are going to see this example. So this is a ternary relationship that has 3 entity types connected to the relationship R. So So E1, E2, E3. So E1, E2, E3 has three tables, right? I'm not going to show these three tables. And the primary keys of E1, E2, E3 are A, B, and C respectively. And R has an attribute X. So for any NRE relationship, whether it is ternary or whether it has 5 entity types connected to it, it doesn't matter. We will follow the same rule, and the ratio here doesn't matter. Okay, so these ratios don't matter. So what we will do, we will use the cross referencing method, same as many to many relationship. So in this case, what we have to do is create a separate table for R, and we will always use the cross referencing method. There is no other option. And we will add the primary keys of all entity types connected to R as foreign keys here. So primary key of E1 will be A, primary key of E2 is B, primary key of E3 is C. And finally, if R has any attributes, we will add those as well. Since R has one attribute here, we will add that. And all these foreign keys are definitely going to be underlined. They make my primary key in this table, and I will also take arrows from each of these and add it to the corresponding table of E1, E2 and E3. Okay, so I will use cross-referencing approach for any ternary or NRE relationship, irrespective of the ratio that they have. Okay, any questions? Any? Okay, so if there are no questions, I will end here today.